So Canada's snap elections are going to happen on April 28th, not October 2nd. Canada's snap election is going to happen April 28th, 2025. So that's just 1 month away. That's only 1 month away, which means it'll be here before you know it. That's just right around the corner. So it will be here before you know it. Here is Mark Carney, the leader of the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party of Canada.
À une famille de revenus. I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump and to build a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. Because I know we need change. Big change. Positive change. You see, my generation was fortunate. For us, there were more opportunities and life was more affordable. You had to work hard, but you could get ahead. That was the bargain. But for the generations that have followed, they're working just as hard or even harder than we did. But they're struggling to pay the rent, to put groceries on the table, and to save for their kids' educations.
So that's Mark Carney. Mark Carney is the successor of Justin Trudeau. It's the Liberal Party, right? They got the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, and then they got the New Democratic Party as well. Mark Carney is a banker. He's a banker. And so this whole snap election is very much a strategic gamble, but it's a gamble nonetheless. And what's the neoliberal gamble? Well, because of Trump's tariffs and his threat of annexing Canada, there's been a kind of an ironic sort of twist to the whole thing. So with Trumpism, since Donald Trump got elected, you would think that maybe other people that are Trumpers would get elected as well. And Pierre is Canada's Trumper, but with Donald's threats of annexing Canada, the Liberal Party is actually getting more popular. The Liberal Party is actually getting more popular. So this is Mark Carney, and he's going to be running against this Pierre Poilievre, I don't know, Pierre. So here's Pierre.
Hi everybody, great to see you. We're cutting the ham and the taxes so that you can bring home the bacon.
So he's going to bring home the bacon, right? This is the man to beat. This is the man to beat. Nixon once said that if there's a Stop X movement, then put your money on X. So right now, it very much seems like it's Stop Pierre. Stop Pierre. Here's another little thing about Pierre.
Ça fait plaisir d'être ici chez Kruger, surtout pour rencontrer des travailleurs extraordinaires. Souvent, on parle des gens ordinaires. Moi, je trouve que c'est des extraordinaires. Des travailleurs qui bâtissent notre pays. Dans ce cas...
Okay, so that's all French, right? That sounds Greek to me. But it does show that the Prime Minister of Canada at least has to know 2 languages. And to be honest, America did not treat France very good during the Revolutionary era. France helped America win our Revolutionary War, and then when France had a revolution, we turned our backs on France. Here's another clip.
Feels like home near the mountains where I grew up. I was adopted by school teachers who taught me that in Canada, if you worked at it, you could climb any mountain. People don't feel that way now. In fact, it feels like we're all a long way from home. Our youth can't even afford homes or food. Debt, taxes, and crime are up. Jobs are down. Immigration is broken. Woke obsessions dishonor our history, destroy our education, degrade our military, divide our people. But common sense will lead us home. We'll cap spending, axe taxes, reward work, build homes, uphold families, stop crime, secure borders, rearm our forces, restore our freedom, and unite our people with common values, common sense, common hope, for our common home, Canada. Let's bring it home.
Bring it home. Bring it on home. Okay, so that's a little bit of Pierre. Here's a little bit of Mark Carney.
Serve whoever wins this election?
Well, that's an interpretation, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation. I'm available for a call, but, we're going to talk on our terms as a sovereign country, not as what he pretends we are, and on a comprehensive deal.
En français sur l'appel avec Monsieur.
Back to you.
As far as we know, you've not spoken to Donald Trump since you took office. What effort precisely have you made to speak with him? And what is your government doing precisely to prepare for the April 2nd tariffs?
So, with respect to the president is waiting for the outcome of the election and see who has a strong mandate from Canadians, or who has a mandate from Canadians. Is it someone who is, to quote Daniel Smith, who's in sync with him? Or is it someone who's going to stand up for Canadians? I'm going to stand up for Canadians. I hope Canadians will back me, and then we'll have a discussion on the basis of as follows, and I'll come to you a second part of your question in a moment. On the basis of the following. First, respect for our country as a sovereign nation. You would expect, given what these people have done and the long history, you would think respect and friendship for Canada. I'm just looking for respect at this point, acknowledgement of our sovereign nation. Yet, my opponent, Pierre Poilievre, doesn't get this. He doesn't understand what's needed in a crisis. He doesn't understand that leaderships Canadians want in their time of need. In fact, his language sounds a bit familiar. If you give the Liberal Party your vote, it's the country I will fight for the next 4 years as your Prime Minister.
So that's Mark Carney, right? Handsome man, polished, but when he stands at that lectern, when he stands at that podium, he looks like a small man. Just the optics, with that Pierre. Pierre was climbing that mountain with that t-shirt, and he's got, looks like he's got some pecs, right? Looks like he's got a little bit of shoulders. Where is this guy's shoulders? This guy doesn't have any shoulder. And if you look at, he doesn't have any shoulders. If you look at America's election, Kamala Harris was a gamble. That was a gamble as well. And ultimately, what did Kamala Harris? She couldn't even beat a racist, fascist pile of shit. She couldn't even beat a racist, fascist pile of shit. If that isn't a blow to neoliberalism, I don't know what is. Neoliberalism failed America. There's a lot of working class people that are hurting. 70-something% of the working class own 4% of the wealth. No war on poverty, lots of homelessness. Kamala Harris was a gamble. And the thing with elections is that nobody knows how they'll actually turn out. There's great revolutionary potential in an election. Revolutions change things drastically, and that change is good. FDR says that elections are peaceful revolutions. So since neoliberalism has failed in America, and this Mark Carney looks weak as hell compared to Pierre, to me, it seems obvious that there's only one choice for Canada, and it's this guy named Jagmeet Singh. And Jagmeet Singh is the leader of the new Democratic Party. So you got the Conservatives, you got the Liberals, and then you got the new Democratic Party. Let's take a listen to Jagmeet Singh talk to Bernie Sanders.
Speaking about that, it was really helpful, I think, for the folks who are going to hopefully watch this, because there is a real push going on, particularly by the right wing and the conservative leaders to erode our system. And what they're doing is, Senator, which is really insidious of them, what they're doing is they are purposely starving our healthcare system. And they're underfunding it, under-resourcing it. They're allowing more private healthcare to come in, which is also starving from the public system, because then you've got public healthcare workers being pulled into the private system. And then they're turning around and saying, oh, the system isn't working.
Okay. Jagmeet, that is exactly, that raises a broader issue. This is what's going on all over the world, not just Canada, not just the United States. So what's going on in the NHS in the UK as well. So what they do is they destroy the system, and they say to people, hey, system is not working. You need to move toward more privatization. And that may in fact work for the people who have the money on top. But most certainly, not for ordinary people. We're seeing that not only in healthcare in this country, but in public education as well. So let's be clear. And I think this is the issue, the defining issue about how, you may have read President Biden just the other day talked about the United States moving toward an oligarchic form of society. And he's absolutely right, and that is something that I've been talking about for a long time. But it ain't just America. You are looking at a global oligarchy led by people like Elon Musk, led by some of these zillionaires in Saudi Arabia or Qatar, and in that part of the world, all over the world. You have a small number of billionaires who are essentially carving up this whole planet. They're getting phenomenally richer, and working people are struggling, and the poorest people are literally starving to death in Sudan and elsewhere.
Oligarchy, I just want to mention, oligarchy means rule by the few. So I think that oligarchy isn't strong enough rhetoric. It's the plutocracy. The plutocracy, maybe the plutocratic oligarchy. Plutocracy is ruled by the rich. So he's talking about the rich. He's talking about the billionaire class. The billionaire class is carving up everybody. If you read The Iron Heel, we need some oligarchy because you need to keep the machines, because you're going to need food, water, housing. You're going to need materials. You're going to need materials. So can we keep some of the machines? I think we could keep some of the machines. Some of the means of production. Some of the means of production we need to keep. And so there's plutocracy, oligarchy, there's democracy, monarchy, kleptocracy, kakisocracy, the rule by the most incompetent, kleptocracy ruled by the thieves, democracy ruled by the people, monarchy ruled by one.
That is a struggle that every working person in Canada, the United States, has got to recognize.
I think you're so right to point that out. And it's in some ways discouraging to think about it happening around the world, but it's also, there's an element of that encouragement that this is a fight for all of us to be a part of. All workers need to be united in this fight because it is a threat to all of us. I think it's really important. I wanted to talk about maybe some of your ideas, Senator Sanders, on specifically, because our relationship you touched on is so important, Vermont being so close to the United States being so close to Canada, that that relationship is so deep. We are friends, we are neighbors, we are there for each other. It is a important relationship. It's a relationship that people around the world look to with envy, and when they think about how well we get along. And what Donald Trump is proposing is creating some rifts in that and trying to challenge that. I wanted to ask you thoughts on what we could do to fight back against this reckless plan. How could we build alliances that could say, to emphasize the friendship and the fact that we're good neighbors, rather than the division that Donald Trump wants to create?
And by the way, call me Bernie. Okay for me to call you Jagmeet? Is that all right?
That's very, very good, sir.
Okay, all right. I think, a few of the easy responses to that, kind of obvious ones. Many of the international unions, steelworkers and others, UAW, are strong in both the United States and Canada. But I think it might be a good idea to expand upon that and bring American trade unionists together with Canadian, our brothers and sisters in Canada, to see how we can work together against Trump's reactionary ideas. So I would say an expansion of cooperation between American and Canadian unions would be one place that we can play a role. Number two, and it's just ironic that you raised that question.
Let's take a look at this right here.
Someone who spreads disinformation, proclaims that he is above the laws, and fires anyone who won't do as he says, even those in law enforcement and in the military. You call that person a fascist. I also believe we need to ban Donald Trump from attending the G7 summit. Donald Trump should not be welcome here. Why would we invite someone who has threatened our very democracy, our very sovereignty?
I can tell you, just in Vermont, that we have fact that we border on Quebec. We have far too little contact, cultural contact, educational contact with our friends in Canada. And we are working literally as we speak now on improving the opportunity of kids in Quebec to come down to Vermont and vice versa. But I think that should extend all across the border. I mean, here are two great countries bordering each other, and I'm not quite sure that people are familiar with each other to the degree that they should. So I'm a big fan of exchange programs. My city, Burlington, Vermont, used to have an exchange program with Burlington, Ontario, actually years ago.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so I mean, I would like to see that expanded coast to coast. Those are two ideas that come to my mind.
I think they're excellent, and then particularly on the trade unions, on the union and the labor force. I think there is an incredible opportunity there because many of our unions that are amongst the strongest do have that relationship with the United States and with Canada. So I think there's an existing relationship, we can build on that.
Why would we invite someone who has threatened our economic well-being? Why would we invite someone who threatens our allies and threatens the world's stability? Why would we allow a convicted criminal into our country? Why would we invite someone who has such disdain for multilateral organizations? Instead, what we should do is use the G7 summit as an opportunity to work with our allies on a plan to resist Donald Trump and his dangerous threats to the world.
So, Jagmeet Singh, that's how you say his name, Jagmeet Singh, he is the leader of the New Democratic Party, and yeah, he's got a beard, and he has, that hat, and you might say, well, what is he? He's a Sikh. He's a Sikh, so he's an Indian Sikh. What is a Sikh? Let's get an actual definition of what a Sikh is. A Sikh is an Indian religion and philosophy that originated in the Punjab region of the Indian subcontinent. So an Indian, literally from the country of India. His full name is Jagmeet Singh Jimmy Dhaliwal. He's a Canadian politician that served the leader of the New Democratic Party since 2017. So you're going to get a lot of racists that aren't going to like him because he's got brown skin. And then he wears that hat, right, or that whatever, the bonnet or whatever. So, if you want to point out that he has weird headwear, well, you got the, baseball caps, and then you got the yarmulke, and then you have the Pope wears a hat. There's a lot of people that wear, hats that seem silly to others. He's 46 years old. He was born in Scarborough, Toronto, Canada. And he's the leader of the New Democratic Party since 2017, and he's a member of Parliament for Burnaby South since 2019. I think he's the obvious choice for Canada to go forward. And, I wouldn't say he's like a third party in America. He's more established. He's actually a part of the Parliament, so he's not just, a citizen kind of yelling into the void. He's a part of Parliament. He's been there at the center of power, working on these issues, working on legislation. And Jagmeet Singh just seems like the obvious choice. When it comes to Mark Carney looks weak. He looks weak. He doesn't look strong, in terms of optics. And when it comes to being conservative or liberal, you want to keep everything the same. It's like change things. You need major changes because neoliberalism has failed. So if America is an example of what's going to happen in Canada, Pierre is the man to beat. And if Pierre is the man to beat, you might be able to beat people over the head and tell them to vote for the Liberal Party, but I think that Canada would be very smart, would be very wise if they're able to do it, if they're courageous enough to do it, to vote for Jagmeet Singh. So the snap elections are going to happen April 28th. It's not October 20th. It's right around the corner. It's right around the corner.